it's not broadly shared. And that's an insight that I don't think a lot of people on the other side actually get. In fact, some of us don't get on the Democratic side. But I do anyway. Was proud of that. Was proud of the fact that I was very active in my community, chairing the United Way, the Chamber of Commerce, the York College of Pennsylvania Board of Trustees. So I do know higher education. I actually was also chair of the York County Community Foundation and all sorts of organizations dedicated to making lives better, making the community better. I worked in the trenches. Sold the business in 2006, and that's when I went to Harrisburg to work with Mike Hanna. And what I saw when I got to Harrisburg just amazed me. I was doing public service. I thought this was like the Peace Corps. I can do this. I'm not saying anybody else in public service should do this, but I could do it without taking any of the benefits, any of the perks. I contributed my salary back to charity. Again, I wasn't looking forward to running for governor, but it sounded good. But I did that because I thought I wanted to be above, I wanted to do public service. But I got there, and what I saw was people like Mike Hanna doing some really amazing things on a much grander scale than I ever thought of doing in the small community of York County, Pennsylvania, or South Central Pennsylvania. They were looking at the whole state, and they were trying to make lives better, making communities better. And I was enthralled by that. So I loved what I saw, started thinking about maybe running for governor 5 years ago. But guess what? The economy tanked, my business tanked. I had sold it, but you know, I went to school with these guys. I grew up with these folks. I didn't learn to drive that forklift by myself. And so when the bank was about to pull the plug on the company, I went back, my wife and I put everything we had taken out of the company, put it back, bought it back, and got my two former partners, they put some money in, and we bought it back, and in the last 5 years have turned the company around. I thought the dream of ever thinking about running for governor was dead. But turned the company around, and I can now do what I thought I would never do again, and that is run for governor. Now that long story is important, because all the things I've done have been about change. It's been about getting things, making things better, about transforming things. That's what I like to do, that's what I want to do, and that's why I'm running for governor of Pennsylvania. And I think if you look at what a Pennsylvania governor can do, the levers you can push in our government, there are four that I think are really important. The first one, as Mike said, is education. We have to get education right in Pennsylvania, and it's something that other states do, but in Pennsylvania it's especially important. We have a constitutional mandate to deliver on the promise of thorough and efficient education for all of our citizens. We have got to do that, and that would be one thing that I pay strict attention to. My daughters are both a product of our local public schools. I know how it transforms lives. I know how important it was in my family, but I also know that all of us depend on a good education system. It's a public, not a private good. It's a public good because here in Lock Haven, you care, as I do in York County, about the education the child in Philadelphia receives. Because if that child doesn't get a good education in Philadelphia, all of our lives are diminished. That's why we all support it with our tax dollars. And the attempt to turn this into a private consumer good really is wrong, because it misses the point that all of us benefit from a strong education. We share the responsibility for funding it because we all share in the benefits of a good education system, and we all share in the consequences of not doing it right. So education is the first important thing. I think transportation for Pennsylvania is especially important. Now, I'm coming back that this is a business person, and I appreciate that we have a transportation bill, and for the record, I am for fixing the bridges. That's not true. But go on, we got to be thinking about what a 21st century infrastructure should look like. Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, a state that really needs to knit the different regions of the state together, north and south, east and west. We need a good transportation system here, and we ought to be talking about all kinds of things that the rest of the world is talking about. We might not want to do everything that China is doing, but we ought to be talking about those things. And we're not because we think we can't afford it. We can't afford not to invest in that. And that's the second thing I would do. Third thing is, and I know I'm in the middle of gas country here, we have a huge natural resource line beneath our feet. And from an environmental point of view, we've got to get this right. But I think we've got to do it. This could be a game changer for all of our lives, for our economy, for our Commonwealth, if we do it right. And that means not only regulating it so that we're not, and I recognize that we can't, given the current technology, do this perfectly, but we can do it much better than we're doing it, and we can tax it. We can tax it so that we're all sharing in the benefits, and that we can generate hundreds of millions of dollars of new money that could go into things like education and transportation and things that we need to make this Commonwealth better. The other thing I think we need to understand about the gas business is this. You know what one of the richest countries in the world was back in 1900? Was Argentina. Argentina was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And it was wealthy on a GDP per capita basis because it was sending a lot of export products, raw materials and commodities to the industrialized world. And when the industrialized world stopped needing some of the things that Argentina was producing, Argentina's economy collapsed. If we're not careful, we could be the same thing here. An exporter of raw materials to other places where the value is really at, to Houston, to the Gulf states, to other places in the world. The next governor has to make sure that we do this right from an environmental point of view, but also from an economic point of view. If it's going to be a game changer, we've got to get it right so that the good jobs, they're created here. So that the focus of this industry is right here, and that the new ideas, new products, and new services that we can generate from doing this right end up happening right here in our towns, our cities. And that's why that's important. Final thing is, the governor of Pennsylvania, if we're going to do something really transformational, has to make sure the rules of the game are fair for everybody. A level playing field. It's not a matter of who you know. It's not a matter of what zip code you live in. All of us are going to have an equal opportunity. I have 2 daughters, as I mentioned. Both of them are very talented. One's a geologist, one's an architect. Neither one lives in Pennsylvania because they don't see an opportunity to invest their talents back in the state. We have the second highest number, I think, Steve, isn't this right, the second highest number of seats in higher education for students of any state next to New York. So we have a lot of bright people coming to Pennsylvania for our institutions like Lock Haven from all over the world. They just don't stay. We need to create a place, we can't make it stay, but we need to create the kind of economy that would make them want to stay here and say, you know, this place is better than California. This place is better than New York or Texas or Washington. And that's what I think the next governor has to do, transform this place. You need a governor who has a background of actually having transformed things, who takes that seriously, and is going to take the levers of power in Harrisburg, things that we can do and do those things well.